Hey, this is Michael Emery. Thanks for tuning into the Slow Baja. This podcast is powered by Tequila Fortaleza, handmade in small batches, and hands down, my favorite tequila. Hey, I want to tell you about your new must-have accessory for your next Baja trip. Benchmark Maps has released a beautiful, beautiful Baja California Road and Recreation Atlas. It's a 72-page large format book of detailed maps and recreation guides that makes the perfect planning tool for exploring Baja. Pick yours up at benchmarkmaps.com. Man. Sultry sounds of Zach Plopper on KPUC. All right. Well, I think we're pretty good here.
Cool.
Zach, introduce yourself.
Zach Plopper, Associate Director of WILDCOAST.
All right. Well, we know who you are. Hey, Zach. Thanks for making a few minutes for me this morning. We're sitting by the water. Well, maybe you should describe it. This is your new project.
Yeah, so this is the San Dieguito River, right where it meets the Pacific Ocean. This is a coastal wetland here in San Diego County that WILDCOAST is working with some local partners to restore, to bring back its ecological function and improve climate resilience on the coastline in this region, and as well as for all the incredible wildlife, the birds, fish. It's a really neat area.
And we are right across the water from the Del Mar racetrack. It's right there.
Yep. This is one of those unique urban wetlands that we have. You know, fortunately, we have them left here in Southern California, a few of them. But, you know, even when they're in the middle of the city, they still serve a huge purpose. A lot of them sink a lot of carbon, atmospheric carbon. These are blue carbon ecosystems. So you have salt marsh and seagrass that captures carbon out of the atmosphere and sinks it all the sediment around it. And so really important, not just for the wildlife, but also for fighting climate change, is protecting even these little urban pocket wetlands that we have.
Awesome. Well, you have a brand new office because you're working right here, and got a chance to tour that this morning. So WILDCOAST is doing good stuff all over. I'm always on your site checking out all the new work you're doing in the thing. Yesterday I was in Tijuana, and whoa, there's a fish jumping. Holy Toledo. There's another one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, folks. Easily distracted by shiny fish jumping out of the water.
Wildlife's coming to say hello.
Foot-long fish popping up to say hello to Zach. Hey, so yesterday I was in Tijuana having tacos with my guys and my friends Javi and Polo at Baja Adventures. And you have a huge project going on there. You've got a trash boom that's skimming all this trash that would have just gone right out into the ocean.
Yep.
So tell me about how that came about and what's going on. Give me an update.
Yep. Yeah, so WILDCOAST has been active improving the ecology as best we can in the Tijuana River, San Diego-Tijuana border region for 20 years now. There's a huge problem of cross-border flows of sewage and trash in that area that impacts the Tijuana River estuary. That's this massive, incredible coastal estuary, the last undivided coastal estuary left in Southern California. There's not a freeway or railroad tracks going through the middle of it. And then right offshore is Tijuana River Mouth State Marine Conservation Area, California's southernmost marine protected area. Offshore of that's the Coronado Islands, part of the Islands of the Pacific Biosphere Reserve in Mexico. So it's right at this apex of all these incredible protected places. And that, you know, tons of wildlife, spiny lobster, dolphins. On occasion, there's eastern tropical Pacific orca whales will swim through the lineup at the Tijuana sloughs. So really incredibly biodiverse area, but it's really impacted by a lot of waste that's coming across the border. 2/3 of the Tijuana River watershed's on the Mexico side, which mostly is at a higher elevation than the San Diego U.S. side. So the whole catchment carries everything from Tecate, Tijuana, down across the channelized river bottom and then into the Tijuana River estuary. It crosses the border into the U.S. just west of the city of Tijuana, between Tijuana and Playas de Tijuana, which is the coastal portion of the city. So we've been doing wetland restoration. We've been doing volunteer cleanups. We've been working with decision makers on both sides of the border to bring investment into helping to solve this problem. And it's not only impacting the wildlife and the ecology and the ecosystem services there, but also people's ability to access and enjoy these areas. This is surrounded by park poor, underserved communities that unfortunately their only open space locally is severely impacted by pollution, water quality issues on the border that most of the world is aware of these days in Imperial Beach. Great trails are impacted by all the sewage, and it's just not necessarily a safe place to play, but it's a place set aside for people to play and for wildlife to flourish. So we've been doing everything we can. And then we applied for funding in 2019 to the Benioff Ocean Initiative at UC Santa Barbara to stop up to a quarter of the plastics, the single-use plastic waste from crossing the border into the Tijuana River estuary and ultimately into the Pacific Ocean. And we got that funding in 2019. Took us about a year to figure out how we were going to do this. And we decided that building a trash boom, so about 100-foot long device that goes across a concrete sediment basin in one of the tributary canyons, a major canyon that feeds into the Tijuana River. It's called Los Laureles Canyon. There's about 60,000 people that live in that canyon. Very few services. There's a lot of people living completely off the grid. There's very little sewage treatment infrastructure and waste collection. And unfortunately, a huge amount of single-use plastics are consumed on the regular. And a lot of that stuff is just discarded under the hillsides and then washes down the sides into the canyon and then across the border into the U.S. So we figured if we can intercept this before it crosses the border, we can keep it from getting into the ocean. Then figure out, what do we do with all this waste? So we got permits in late 2019. 2020, we finally got the permits from the municipality to install the boom. And we did so successfully in January of this year, right before it started raining, like literally the day before we got this thing installed. And 7 months into the project, it's captured about 10,000 pounds of ocean-bound, what would be ocean-bound plastic waste.
And so this is a year that's had very, very little rain. 10,000 pounds. I've seen the photos. I mean, it's, you can see them. WildCoast on Facebook, WildCoast. You're everywhere. You're wildcoast.org, correct?
Yep.
Wildcoast.org. And then obviously Instagram, Facebook. But the photos are amazing. You've got all this stuff, and there's been very, very little rain.
Yeah. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, right? We need rainfall desperately in California for that project, though. Part of me was glad it stopped just so we could get this under control. It's those rainfalls are just totally catastrophic in that area in terms of all the stuff it picks up and takes across from, disease to tangible, physical waste.
So no easy feat getting through the bureaucracies on both sides of the border to get this done and find some money from Mark Benioff and the Ocean Fund. That's amazing. And it's working. Are you amazed?
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's not something that we're experts in, but that's the way WildCoast operates, is if we identify a problem, and we think we have a solution, we'll go for it and try it out. And most times we're successful. We have a great team of 20, both in California and in Mexico. We have a full-time project coordinator, Rosario, in Tijuana, who's absolutely amazing, and then Faye Crevichet on our communications and policy director here in California. And together with other members of our team, we're making this work with some additional support from local groups and partners in Tijuana.
We can't wait to drive our old Land Cruiser down to Baja, and when we go with Baja Bound Insurance. Their website's fast and easy to use. Baja Bound Insurance, serving Mexico travelers since 1994. Hey, do you have a 4x4? You love off-road racing? You got to join Slow Baja in the Nora 500. It's Ensenada to Ensenada, 3 great days, October 7th through 10th. Kurt LeDuc, Off-Road Hall of Famer, leads the class. If we can do it in our old truck, you can do it. Get your street legal 4x4, get into the safari class, and I'll see you in Ensenada. More info at nora.com. That's www.norra.com or on Slow Baja. I realize you haven't figured out where all the trash is going to be reused, repurposed, recycled, but give me some highlights of what's been happening. Give me some numbers of what's been sent off for recycling. And
yeah, so we've been able to actually pull that 10,000 pounds out of that basin that was stopped by the boom. And I don't know the exact percentages offhand, but a portion of that is taken to the landfill.
Let me stop you right there. 10,000 pounds by hand.
Yeah, by hand.
This is all, and so you're dealing also with local employment. You're creating jobs. You always hear about, gas and oil projects create all these jobs. But you're creating real jobs for real people. Right there.
People that desperately need some assistance. We're very, aware of the dangers associated with that, and of really dotting all the I's and crossing the T's, and working. Our staff out of Ensenada is really playing a big role in helping manage, the personnel and that side of things. But yeah, it is providing opportunity. Ultimately we want to phase out single-use plastic consumption, and so we don't, we're aware of that part of it too. But in the meantime, let's just get this stuff out of here. And then the response that we're getting from the community is tremendously positive. People are really, really supportive of it. They don't want this stuff there. If they are provided with an alternative, they'd be happy to go down that road. So that's the part that I was kind of, thought was going to be the most challenging, and it is challenging getting that local support and buy-in. But we have a great team that, is really part of the fabric of those communities that is able to work with local people, and it's been great.
So I cut you off on the numbers you're rolling through. So you've got a portion of it that's going to landfill, which, here, that's where it would have gone initially.
Yeah.
Of course, rather than just dumped in the backyard, washed down a canyon and out to the ocean.
Yeah.
So that's proper. And then there is national recycling. We talked about that a little bit. So there's a portion of it going off to recycling.
Yep.
And tell me about that.
Yeah. So a portion of it's working with a private company in Mexico called Icose. And that stuff is being taken, unfortunately right now, it's outside of the state of Baja California for recycling, just because there isn't that capacity to recycle single-use plastics in Baja California or in Tijuana or Ensenada at the scale that we need. And that's really a big part of this project moving forward, is how do we stimulate a market for recycling that's locally. So right now, another portion's being recycled, and then the rest of it's being repurposed. So it's actually being reused for pieces or building blocks for community parks and other sort of small-scale infrastructure projects. So we're right now just kind of putting the blueprints together with a local engineer in Tijuana to create 2 community parks and playgrounds that'll reuse a lot of the waste tires and a lot of the bottles, kind of in different materials of the play equipment there, including swings and teeter-totters and stuff for children in communities that really need that too. There's limited outdoor open recreation space that's safe, and so we're hoping to be able to support that. So then another opportunity we're looking at is how do we get kind of the equipment on site that exists out there in the world to do on-site recycling. So actually shred the stuff that we can, create building blocks for materials that can then be exported and maybe stimulate, some sort of business opportunity for the community that way.
Amazing. So, Zach, I promised you that we'd be brief today. It's a work day for you, or it's a Tuesday morning, and I would love, since we're here, run me through some of the highlights of what else WILDCOAST is doing in Baja and in Mexico.
Sure. So that's going on, and then we're really moving forward on our 1 Million Mangrove Mission. So we've planted about 120,000 mangrove seedlings in San Ignacio Lagoon in Baja California Sur. And we're looking to, we're going to be expanding that this year, planting an additional up to 40,000 seedlings and exploring mangrove restoration opportunities in Magdalena Bay, other areas of the Gulf of California, and then down in Oaxaca and southern Mexico as well.
And let's tell listeners why mangrove mangroves are so important?
Sure. Yeah. So mangroves are important for all the wildlife that's in these areas. It's really is like what makes Magdalena Bay and San Ignacio Lagoon what they are, which is habitat for gray whales, huge, tremendous importance for migratory birds, sea turtles, fisheries, just a whole bunch of wildlife depends on the existence of these mangroves. They also buffer the coastline and the communities there against hurricanes, which we're seeing kind of increasingly more intense and taking different paths than they did in the past. We attribute that to climate change. And then they also pull huge amounts of carbon out of the atmosphere. So they actually, just like I mentioned, this lagoon that we're sitting next to, they're a blue carbon ecosystem. So they capture carbon, they store it in all the sediment that's around these, and they store carbon at a rate up to 50 times more than rainforests and forests on land. So they are protecting them, restoring them is a natural climate solution. And we've protected about 8,500 acres of mangrove forests in northwest Mexico, and working on another 31,000 acres throughout the Gulf and other parts of the peninsula. So that work's going really well.
And the project, 1 million mangroves.
1 million, yeah.
And you're about 10%.
We're about, more than 10% into it. So
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep rolling here.
Okay.
So Seven Sisters,
Seven Sisters, we got more than 51,000 acres of land purchased. We're gonna get a train here in a minute. We've purchased about 38 miles of coastline between Puerto Canoas down to near Santa Rosalita, protecting all the bays, points, wetlands in that region, maintain open public access so people can still enjoy that, but it is set aside for conservation and actually recognized by the Mexican federal government as a protected area. So it's not just under WILDCOAST ownership, but actually, totally destined towards conservation. Wait for this thing.
Take a little break for the train.
Yeah.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Good stuff. Great information.
Yeah, it's worked
Take
out
a breath,
great.
man.
Yeah,
You're an encyclopedia
it
sounds like you like your work.
There's a lot on autopilot.
I took my first domestic train a week or 10 days ago when I came back from Oregon. Yeah, took the Amtrak overnight. Yeah, it was, kind of sad. You just see so many homeless camps.
Oh my God,
shocking. Shocking.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Hey, we're back. The train, the coaster has passed, and we're back with Zach. So you were talking about Seven Sisters and the work that you're doing there.
Yep. So that work's going great. Focusing kind of less on the acquisition side, more on the management side. So some more signage to let people know this, best visitation practices. We have one ranger that works out of Faro San Jose that patrols the northern properties and working on getting someone similar for the southern properties as well. So if you go through that area, tread lightly, let us know, send me pictures. It's a hard place to get to that don't get to enough, so I always like to hear updates from folks going down there.
It sounds like a good Slow Baja podcast, going out
sure.
with your ranger, checking it out for a couple of days.
Yeah, we could do a 5-day Slow Baja podcast and just trickle our way down the coastline.
I'm available.
Yeah. And then our coral reef work is going really well. We just published the first baseline study for the conservation status of coral reefs in the Mexican Pacific. So representing about 800,000 acres of national parks that have coral reefs within them. So Cabo Pulmo, Espiritu Santo, Huatulco National Park down in Oaxaca. And there was very little research on this whole kind of network of national parks and the coral reefs within them. On, are they doing okay? What species are present? What might be the threats to these? And then how do we guide conservation or management to ensure that these coral reefs continue to thrive? And so that's going to be on our website here by the end of the day today, very shortly. But it's a great document that kind of takes you through these 7 different national parks and talks all about the wildlife and the state of the coral reefs there. What we have found is that these coral reefs are more resilient to climate change. There's very few bleaching events, and And so what that means to us is we have to really protect them against all the other stuff. So anchoring vessels, for example, dropping anchor on the reefs that they're there to enjoy. So we've installed mooring buoys in Huatulco and in Espiritu Santo National Park. A lot of outreach with the tourism outfitters that are there and capacity trainings with them, providing information to the tourists, and then working with the national park staff in both these areas to get them up to speed on, what they have and how they can help, improve the management of these areas. And so that's managed out of our La Paz office. Rebecca Melendez, who's our Coral Reef Program Manager, and then we have a new coordinator working on coral reefs out of Huatulco. So that's going super well as in addition to the mangroves in Los Cirros. And then we're still getting ready actually for probably an intense sea turtle nesting season down in Oaxaca in southern Mexico. So working on the 9.3 mile Morayuta beach between Huatulco and Salina Cruz, as well as a beach called Escobilla, which is between Puerto Escondido and in Huatulco, monitoring every single one of those mass nestings in which tens to hundreds of thousands of sea turtles come to lay their eggs there. A lot of outreach and education with youth in the communities there. We got some new signage going in to attract the tourism to the sea turtle camps there, to show, there's things that they can get involved with, support and volunteer. And so that work's also going really exciting. So yeah, busy days down in Mexico and then California. We got a lot of restoration work going on. We're working with the state to help manage 500,000 acres of marine protected areas off our coast. And so it's, 2021's a busy year, and we're running.
Well, there's a gleam in your eye and a smile on your face, and I just want to say thanks again, Zach, for making some time for Slow Baja and giving us an update on your amazing conservation work. So best ways for people to find out what you're up to?
Yep, wildcoast.org. We can both visit our website in English and Spanish there. I got tons of resources. Our blog's really active to kind of take people on a more of a visual journey to these areas. We're on our Instagram. It's got a lot of great photos and updates. That's at Wild Coast Costa Salvaje, and as well as Facebook. So, and Twitter. We're pretty active there. We'll have some virtual events coming up at the end of the year, so people can plug in from around the world and learn a little bit more about what we're doing and see how they can get involved. So yeah, keep an eye out.
All right, Zach. Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Slow Baja's wardrobe is provided by Taylor Stitch. Responsibly built for the long haul, Taylor Stitch makes clothes that wear in, not out. Wherever your adventure takes you, Taylor Stitch has you covered. Check them out at taylorstitch.com. Hey, you guys know what to do. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, rating, all that stuff. And if you missed anything, you can find the links in the show notes at slowbaja.com. I'll be back before you know it, and if you want to receive notices on new episodes, please follow Slow Baja on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for you old folks.